Hey, good evening wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a great weekend, folks. And thank you, Wendy, for being so excited about the professor coming on, as am I. Always look forward to the professor coming on. Serious content, but the professor does it in such an articulate and witty way. It makes us all look forward to what he's got to say next. So a huge thank you for coming on, my friend.
Thank you for that, Mr. Attwood. It's wonderful to be with you on Saturday. We're going to go over some new ground here. There's a lot of echoing going on here, but I always try to find some new bits of information that we could use as a community to build out the story, to add to it, instead of just increasing the reverberations of already existing information. So hopefully that's going to be achieved today.
Yeah, and prior to the show, we discussed a few different subjects. We've got what's happened to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We've got the Epstein emails and Trump under a lot of heat right now. We've also got the continuing saga of the tragedy of Charlie Kirk, the LSD, Utah Freemasons. So which of those areas would you like to start with?
Well, first of all, let me give a shout out to your friend, Andrew Lowney. So far as I'm concerned, he wrote the definitive full-length book on the Mountbattens. It's really good. It's one of his better works. So this is the American cover, the edition of it. I recommend this. This should be in everybody's library. It gives you the historical backstory of what we're talking about today. And so far as the contemporary is concerned, I have been, for the past several years, I taught this book in my lectures, but more recently, I revisited this concept that was pioneered by a journalist cited by the American historian, true crime writer. He's really more than true. He transcends the genre. It's called super mob. So I thought that it would be more fruitful for us to use the super mob concept as sort of a blanket term for this network of miscreants who seem to be at the center of all these different related problems. You mentioned 3 areas just for beginnings, but they're all linked together. They're linked together by the super mob. And we could also avoid this minefield of these sort of incendiary terms like Ziocon or Zionist or Christian Zion. Let's just call them the super mob, because their organization and their behavior and their history is that of organized crime, super mob, especially in the post-war period. And I myself, as a yellow person, have been victimized by the super mob. The super mob people helped orchestrate the mass internment of American citizens of Japanese background. And then once they got them over into the concentration camps, they absconded with their real estate, their real property, hotels, homes, massive infrastructure. And the insiders, orchestrated by the super mob attorney by the name of Sidney Korshak. That's not a name that's bandied about in these discussions. People should investigate who super mob lawyer Sidney Korshak is. Korshak. He is at the center of any number of these intrigues, and he is one of any number of university law school trained people who found a way to integrate with what we know as the mob. These were the non-educated, brilliant individuals such as Meyer Lansky. We all know the names, but who are the people that were administrating all this? Who are the people that were acting in the judicial system, so-called, behind the scenes in the regulatory agencies? It was people like Sidney Korshak. And he was a well-dressed, well-groomed, articulate educated individual. I think he went to Marquette School of Law, University. And at that time, most people, mob or not, had zero education, no higher education, let alone a law degree. So they needed Sidney Korshak, to orchestrate all this for them behind the scenes. And the fact that his name is barely mentioned shows you the enormity of the power that he wielded. But to finish up the story and to make it contemporary, all the real estate taken from Nisei, which was a American-born Japanese people, that would be like my parents' generation, that was taken away seized under the enemy alien properties. And this was orchestrated by people on the Supreme Court, people like Brandeis, who was the first Jewish Supreme Court justice, by the way. He was also a Sabbatean, by the way. That's another story altogether, because the metaphysics of crime need to be addressed as well. And I'm going to be doing that tomorrow with the great Leo Zagami, talking about his book. So anyway, to make the long story short, and Gus Russo devotes about the whole section that he titles The Rape of the Nisei, and talks about how these characters absconded with an entire community's wealth, social wealth, and took it. And we can see the same pattern unfolding in the case of the Malibu fires, right? These so-called natural disasters and all these crises that are health crises that are engineered. It's the same pattern. So, ladies and gentlemen, we can learn from this history and thereby mitigate some of the evil that's out there and prepare ourselves for it, right? So anyway, to complete the story, the hotels and the real estate that Sidney Korshak helped hand over to his super mob associates. And by the way, super mob specifically refers to people who are descendants of Ukrainian, Russian, Jewish family backgrounds, which was also not coincidentally where Sabbatean Frankism took deep root. They brought that to America, and it provided the metaphysical basis of the super mob. Gus Russo doesn't say that. This is more of Leo Zagami's contribution. So they handed it over to a family called Pritzker, Abraham Pritzker, Abe Pritzker. And Mr. Attwood, there's a governor in the great state of Illinois by the name of J.B. Pritzker. He's the grandson of Abe Pritzker. And Abe Pritzker is part of the family that stole my shit. And they happened to build upon the absconded real estate of my people, and they built the Hyatt hotel chain and investment properties. That was the origins of the great Pritzker wealth and power, now political power. That's J.B. Pritzker. So J.B. Pritzker's people, you're watching, I want my money back. All right. We got you identified, and it was Gus Russo. He's still around, by the way. He is the dean of true crime writers, so far as I'm concerned. He also wrote a separate volume called The Outfit, which refers more specifically to the Chicago people. Pritzker's come out of Chicago, Illinois. Korshak, Illinois. That's JB. Huh?
That's JB in the picture.
There's JB in the middle. He also has a brother/sister who's, I think, Secretary of Health and Welfare, something like that. Very highly placed. I think he's transgender or she's transgender. So this guy's a huge shot caller today, JB. So we're still living under the regime of the super mob. And we're still seeing the bodies dropping, and we're going to see some more bloodshed before this is over, right? And that's why these sessions are so important as a warning that we know to the opposition, that we know that the system, we know the history, we know your next move. And we understand how history, these patterns tend to repeat. Now, as I was preparing to come on today, Mr. Attwood, I happened to come across an author who I was not familiar with, and I wanted to ask you if you're familiar with her and what her reputation is in Britain. Her name's Lucia Osborne Crowley. Are you familiar with her?
As in Aleister Crowley.
That I don't know. We're going to give her the benefit of the non-doubt. But her name is, she was on a chat show. She showed up in my feed, so I watch it. But she did a book. I just ordered it this morning. It's called Lasting Harm, Witnessing the Trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. So she was in the courtroom. They only admitted 4 outside journalists into the trial. And she was one of them. She wrote a book on it. I'm really looking forward to receiving it. Now, what she brought to my attention was the fact that I think a lot of people know about the Clinton death list. This is a pretty good book. It's a compendium on that. But it doesn't include
Clinton body count. Yeah.
The body count. Yeah, behind the death list, this is by a guy named Steve Preston. But Lucia Osborne Crowley states that in specific reference to Ghislaine Maxwell, who she was threatened by personally. She talks about this in the interview. But within that milieu itself, she had one of her friends, Caroline, I can't remember her last name, bore witness against Maxwell in the court of law, and then she was suicided. And then we all know the case of Virginia Giuffre Roberts, correct? And her family and a lot of people around her question whether it was indeed a suicide that visited upon her. And there were some other characters, and I remember these cases. They were just kind of skirted over, and they're fairly recent. One of them was a person by the name of Thomas Bowers, and he was a Deutsche Bank executive. By the way, this all relates to the Trump files that are being fought over right now, the release. This is some information that might come out in conjunction with the full release of files that include discussions of Donald J. Trump when he was a civilian. But Thomas Bowers was the Deutsche Bank executive who was found hanged to death, quote unquote, right, in 2019 in Malibu. That's where the fires took place as well, coincidentally. And he's connected to the Trump loans, quote unquote, that amounted to $2 billion US dollars. Yeah, when I say dollars, I mean criminal money. When I say dollars, or dollars. When I say dollars, that means chump money that you and me spend, right? I'm talking about the big bucks. So that's Thomas Bowers. This is reported in Los Angeles Magazine. And he was not the only person to expire, right? And I think, and I'm telling you this because I think your viewers have probably figured out, this is, I think, what Trump is trying to hide by ordering Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino to sit on the files until we forget about it. But we're not going to forget about it, because for the first time in human history, Mr. Attwood, we are not just passive bystanders in the historical pageant. We are active participants. We're doing it right now. We are helping to shape history. That's the good news. I don't want to be a downer all the way through, but we are active participants in the history, the contemporary, as it's happening. All right. So there's Thomas Bowers. This is for the people who are either budding researchers or mature investigators. You can follow up on that. There's Mark Middleton, and here's where the Clinton milieu comes into play here. Mark Middleton, he was a former Clinton aide with very close ties to Epi, our own Jeffrey Epstein. He was found hanged and shot. Not necessarily in that order, I guess. This is as recently as 2022. Okay, and so this book does not even scratch the surface. And notice he has a connection with Epstein because they're all connected in the network. And then finally, I'll just end with this one character because his ancestors, Leo S. Bing, they're like the Pritzker family. No one really knows that much about them. And there should be an Andrew Lowney type person who's going to write a book on Leo, the Bing Empire, Bing and Bing. They started in New York. And by the way, they're not Chinese, they're Jewish. Because Bing is also a Cantonese name. The Bing cherry was developed by a Chinese agronomist up in the Pacific Northwest of America. But Steve Bing, June 2020, not that long ago, he fell from the 27th floor of his Los Angeles apartment. Yes, and there are apartments in LA that tall. It's in Century City, which used to be, by the way, the lot of 20th Century Fox. They developed it for commercial and residential luxury offices. That's where all the high-powered attorneys are, by the way, Century City, LA. So he fell, he died of concrete poisoning. He fell out of his 27th floor apartment and hit the pavement. What an ugly Jackson Pollock-like mess he must have left. So we have to, there's more, ladies and gentlemen, there's more. Steve Bing impregnated your own Elizabeth Hurley. He was banging all the stars and celebrities of the day. He was a really good-looking guy, no homo, but he was a really handsome. He looked like an actor. He could be like in male adult movies, but the drugs finally kicked in and they really started taking its toll. But he was only 55 years old when he took that fatal leap off the 27th story of one of these luxury Century City condos. So he impregnated Liz Hurley. And here's something interesting, because I like to keep it light. The godfather of that love child, there's Liz Hurley, the lovely Liz Hurley. Oh my God. Bing was hitting it, because remember, his granddad was this developer, right? Leo S. Bing. And Stephen Bing, when he was 18 years old, inherited $600 million. So that's why all the ladies would gravitate to him. He was a good-looking guy. Yeah, but he had tons of money. So research, people out there, Leo S. Bing, Bing and Bing, because he comes out of the same milieu as Donald Trump's old man, right? On the other side of the East River. That's his world there. And that's where all these monies and these loans, these deals are passed back and forth. Now there's more for people who are interested in Hollywood glitz, glamour, and gossip. Bing produced a lot of our favorite movies. He was close to some of our most favorite globalist actors like Tom Hanks. He helped finance, we don't know where the money is. The film business is an arm of organized crime. I think everybody knows that by now, right? From the very high level, high budget films all the way down to Roger Corman cheapo movies and everywhere in between. It's a way to move money from country to country and to practice all kinds of creative accounting, right? So yeah, the Polar Express, Tom Hanks earned $285 million globally. He produced Beowulf, the great classic that we were forced to read in school by Bob Zemeckis. He helped finance a film by Martin Scorsese. I'm sure Martin Scorsese has a lot of mob money wrapped up in his projects, but I'm not going to look too closely into that because I want to live a little bit longer. And on it goes. So you see here, we're talking about we're only scratching the surface when everybody's fixated. I'll release the emails. We're gonna get rid of Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and his girlfriend, supposedly a Mossad agent. That's all. I mean, it's important, but it's all smoke. It's fog. It's part of the fog machine. And these indie people here who are, oh yeah, Candace Owens, go on, like they are part of the trialectic, right? Your friend David Icke talks about the dialectic, right? You've got the left and the right, and they tend to have a fight.
I've got a book to show you. I'm just going to grab it. Keep talking.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hosting the show, the Shaun Attwood Show. It's a multifold group of individuals. Today, we're talking about an individual because they realize that after David Icke, we see these conflicts as being put up jobs, like wrestling, right? Worldwide wrestling. So we're more sophisticated. So they said, okay, there you go. That's his recent one, his current book?
Oh my goodness, Professor. I've read this and I feel like I've reawakened because so much has happened in recent years to co-opt independent media and to try and put us back into the dream world. But David Icke is ahead of the curve as usual, and there's so many revelations in this. And he's back on YouTube now as well after a 5-year hiatus.
Excellent. Yeah. And I see also that he has a legacy. His son is on YouTube as well, or Rumble. One of them.
Yeah, we've had Gareth on the channel recently.
Gareth Icke, yes. And so it's great to see that continuity there, and the fact that a lot of his material was plagiarized by other people today who have millions of subscribers, and they're presenting it like they just discovered the moon. But that's the guy right there.
Exactly.
Right, in your hands. Right. Exactly. So I'm glad he's come back to reclaim his birthright, David Icke. He's replanting his flag. And we're not this time around, we're ready for it. By the way, I did see one of his shows in Marin County here. It's right outside of, it's an affluent community right outside of San Francisco. So I got my ticket to the David Icke show, and he went 8 hours. It was one of those marathon stage shows just by himself too. There was like a 30-minute lunch break. It was an incredible performance.
I watched the 8-hour one in Wembley in London. One of the focuses one of his focuses in the reveal is the MAM, and the MAM is a term that he's coined referring to the mainstream alternative media, which you touched on then, and he dissects them, and it's hilarious as well. It's so bloody funny. And he dissects Elon Musk as well.
You were at the famed Wembley event live?
Yeah, this was a long time ago, a very long time ago.
Well, I bought a ticket for it because they did it like a satellite remote.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is several years ago. Anyway, it's great to see that he's jumped right back in after being, well, you know the whole story, deplatformed, stigmatized, and now he is, I don't know, considered to be one of the guiding lights in this whole movement, where the people themselves are part of making the history instead of being spectators to it. Anyway, that was my contribution for today, other than the fact that I have met people who have been eliminated. Let's say they've been taken off the stage. One of them, I'll just mention this book here by Scott Bennett. He was a whistleblower about the UBS, the whole banking scandal, and I was looking at this again. And he has recommendations to Donald Trump here, what he needed to do to avoid being indicted or assassinated or both. And this was published in 2013. He died just earlier this year of fast-acting pancreatic cancer. So the list is growing. And then here's someone another whistleblower. His name was Philip Haney. He lives not too far from where I am here. And he was a founding member of Homeland Security when it was a department that was newly organized. And unfortunately, no one gave him the memo saying that, hey, this was just a ruse. This is just an excuse to clamp down on the American public. It had nothing to do with anti-terrorism. So he started going public about that, and he wound up, you know what, in his
Is that
trailer.
one of the CIA turbo cancer strains that they tried to get Castro with?
The one with Scott Bennett, I don't know, but it was pancreatic cancer, and that's typically what it attacks, the pancreas. So I don't know. We can infer that. This one here was more like your common self-inflicted gunshot wounds, supposedly, right? And not far from where he lived, Gary Webb, the person who wrote the book Dark Alliance, Definitive, still in print, ladies and gentlemen. You definitely need to read that one. That blew the whole system wide open about the CIA, Contra, Ollie North, the whole drug empire. And he had to move out here where I am.
Let me just do a viewer announcement then. All right, we've got almost 1,500 watching live presently. And I see that the professor is at 65,000 subs. And he could do with your sub if you've not subbed yet. So let me put that in the live chat. And the other announcement is, as well, we've got 2 streams running presently. One is for portrait size on YouTube, and the other is for landscape size on YouTube. So if you've got your phone and you've got the wrong one on it, just go to the channel, and there's 2 running live simultaneously presently on YouTube. So if people on phones are really enjoying the portrait one, but the landscape one that we've also used is available right now as well. If you're watching on a TV and you've got the phone one on, you might want to switch to the landscape one. Anyway, yes, please continue.
Excellent. And adding to that, I will, on my own Patreon, include some excerpts from Supermob. Because in order to tie all these threads together, you need an overarching historical system or concept to pull it all together. And then it becomes quite understandable and manageable. Otherwise, it just comes at you at these sort of one-offs, and it doesn't seem to make any sense. This brings coherence to what we're experiencing today in 2025, and which, with such coherence, we have a fighting chance to ward off the shenanigans of the super mob. They're deep. And of course, they also have a metaphysical infrastructure here, if you want to call it. This is the Leo Zagami book. This is a sort of a synthesis of Jeffrey Epstein and the Frankenstein monster.
Looks a bit like Bush as well, doesn't it? The end result
could
Bush
be,
Jr.
yeah. And any number of these movie villains by the great English director James Whale. Remember those movies from the 30s? The Mummy and the original Frankenstein?
Oh, yeah, I just love them. Boris Karloff and all that. Yeah.
Of course. Bela Lugosi, right? All that stuff. But, you know, as children, you're watching this stuff, and you don't realize there's a whole civilizational history behind it, right? What David Icke refers to as predictive programming is something that's been going on since Beowulf, probably. You know, they tell these stories and around the campfire about the enemy or about themselves. Nothing's changed in that regard. The delivery system has changed, right? But through time, there are always people, wizards, if you will, wise people, who are able to really suss out the underlying storyline and motives of these characters. And that's how, as a species, we've been able to survive for millennia upon millennia. And that's why, as a species, we will even overcome Alex Karp and Peter Thiel and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, everybody's tech favorite hero, right? They're talking about trying to bring him back. Elon Musk, I'm not a fan, as you can tell. So that's the good news. You learn this material here, and we can outthink them. This is an intellectual battle. People talk, oh, this is spiritual warfare. Yeah, sure. But it's mostly a thinking man's game and thinking person's game here that we're dealing with. And I think we can really take a lot of pride in the fact that in a relative short span of time within the last decade, in particular, thanks to people like Dave and I think the majority now of the general public is on board, right? 80% of the American public wants to see all the emails released, according to the polls. That's a huge amount. Most people don't care. They're indifferent. They what polls, what letters, what emails, but they know and they want it. And President Donald Trump is going to have to respond in some fashion. And we are helping to fashion the response, not dictate it, but they're going to have to respond to what we're discussing right here.
Let me show you his latest response on the subject of Maxwell, and we'll get your thoughts. So this is on Alex C's channel. I watch him; he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna let me make this big. There we go.
Is what Trump said, and he refused to rule out a pardon. He did not say whether he was going to pardon Ghislaine.
Let me go back a bit. What is it? Where is it coming again? Oh, I don't have the actual.
And he refused to rule out a pardon. He did not say whether he was going to pardon Ghislaine or not going to pardon Ghislaine, which is the wrong answer. Wrong answer. Who is handling Trump's communications, man? The answer to the question, if you get it from a reporter about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, the answer to that question is no. that's the answer to that.
So I'll put the link to that full video in the description box if you want to use that. Alex does some great work. And
absolutely.
Let me get back over to the president. So what do you think about that? What he said?
Well, on the basis of that interview with Lucia Osborne Crowley, I don't think she should see the light of day, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a horrible, intimidating, violent person. She's a violent criminal. She's far more dangerous to society than Shaun John Combs ever could hope to be. And even though until recently was in prison, right? I'm talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. She was able to order, I assume it's her, she was able to order the harassment of any number of witnesses, people who are sitting for book interview, article interviews, intimidating journalists. She could do this behind bars, right? So, if anything, I believe that Lucia Crowley's contribution will be to remind us that we're dealing with someone who's really a threat to society and shouldn't be allowed to roam free.
I found the actual clip of Trump now as well. Let me.
Oh, okay. Great.
Get his own words. Let's see. Go back a little bit. Oops.
On Venezuela, sir, you've had a lot of meetings on Venezuela. I know you can't tell us what your next steps will be, but can you say, have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do?
Oh, this is the Venezuela bit.
I sort of made up my mind. I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up my mind.
What do you say to some of your supporters who might not be excited about another foreign?
He basically says he's not made his mind up about invading Venezuela. No, he has made his mind up, but he can't tell what it's going to be. Do you think this is the case of when all else fails, they take you to war? Because
absolutely.
The Epstein fire is burning so brightly right now. The pressure, you can feel it on the whole administration. And a complete distraction of that would be the Thatcherite technique of going to war with Argentina, whereby she told Ronald Reagan her popularity rode high for years off the back of that. And Bush, and they incorporated that into their war strategies to get their popularity up, especially with the Bush crime family. Do you think this is something that Trump is going to incorporate, the strategy of going to war to distract everybody from the Epstein files not being released? And Maxwell, living a life of luxury right now with puppy dogs, personal trainer, getting meals catered for her, etc., and possible early release?
Yes, I think it's shaping up to be a wag the dog type strategy. I mean, Clinton, you name it, Obama, all of them resort to main force in order to distract from domestic issues. I don't think, however, that Trump is going to be able to use that strategy because we know it's entered the language. You know what wag the dog is? We know about false flags. We know about the war down against Argentina. We know the history now, and we're further along so far as our response time. I mean, you just introduce a person here who's doing a walkabout, recording his thoughts about what's going down right now. We didn't have that even until 5 years ago, right? Thanks, ironically, to the iPhone and these types of mobile technologies, which you are quick to exploit to our benefit. You see, the tools can work for us or against it. You're using them to help us push forward. So I think it's going to fail. It's going to fail because public pressure is going to be so intense that they're going to say, no, you're not going to attack some relatively innocent country, its leadership under the pretext of this, that, or the other. We're not going to let it happen. Just like they're putting pressure on the situation in Gaza. Can I mention that word?
Do they care, Professor, what we think? Over 1 million people marched in London against the war, the BS that we were told. Saddam Hussein has got weapons of mass destruction. Over 1 million people saw through that here and marched in London, and they did it anyway.
Yeah. Well, the answer to that is yes and no, and the solution to that is to keep marching. Right? There's still people who are militating against the U.S. support of people like Zelensky, Netanyahu. They're in the majority now. And at a certain point, it's not sustainable, right? This defiance of the public will. It finally broke down Nixon because what happens, it might not be, quote unquote, the people who perform the coup de grace. It's going to be the people within the administration, just like Nixon was taken down from within. There are people, we already know that there are people within the Trump administration that are actively trying to take him down, and they might succeed. And that might be beneficial to the republic. This is coming from me, right? Now, I'll tell you, full disclosure, I voted for Donald J. Trump for president of the United States, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Okay, so I'm a Trump partisan, but it might be healthy or healthful to the body politic for him to go. Right, he's losing it. He's losing political support, and I think he might be going the way of Biden so far as dementia is concerned. I don't know. He seems to be slipping. He seems to be losing touch with reality. Something's changed about him. His energetic field has shifted in a bad direction. So the long answer to your question is for us to keep pushing ahead. And then the people in his inner circle, they will be the ones who move him aside.
But what's the alternative, Professor? Wouldn't that mean something worse?
It's not the alternative is not J.D. Vance, that's for sure. But there are people like in America, the Marjorie Taylor Greene, or MTG, as we affectionately call her, and any number of up-and-coming politicians. But I think J.D. Vance is not the solution. He was groomed also by the whole Yale law school people. And he's part of the establishment. Same way with Ramaswamy, all these characters. Anybody who emerges is going to have to come from a populist movement. And of course, that's how Trump rode into power, is that he presented himself as a populist. But we're finding out now that he was getting all these billion-dollar loans from the Bing family and the Adelsons and all these other machers, right? these really hardcore descendants of super mob, right? And they said, listen, man, next time the next bullet's not going to miss the target. I think that's when he began to change the agenda. So it's a matter of, his own personal survival at this point.
Let's do a quick viewer poll then. Put a 1 in the chat if you think Trump lost his groove by not releasing the Epstein files. Put a 2 in the chat if you think Trump still has his groove and he's just playing 5D chess with the Illuminati. We got a lot of ones coming in.
Okay,
Yeah, we got a lot of ones coming in.
Well, there's a third option, is that he might be able to get his groove back.
Oh, he'd have to end the war in Ukraine. He'd have to bring peace to the Middle East. He'd have to take all the money back from Pfizer, the 60 million he just boosted them with. He'd have to completely release all of the Epstein files and explain why he spent several hours with Virginia, as documented in the email exchange. We would love to see him come clean. We would love to see Prince Andrew come clean. But these guys just piss on our heads and tell us it's rain. That's the typical strategy. Deny, deny, deny.
Yeah. Well, I think and I proposed this quite a while ago on your show. I think it can start with a sincere apology, right? That'll be the starting point. That's sort of like the metaphysical opening for these other. I don't think these, like Operation Warp Speed, we can't turn back the clock on that. He's responsible for that. And a lot of these people are damaged forever, or they're dead, right? But he can begin by begging for our forgiveness, and then we can work from there. That's where he has to take a knee, right? Not on the football field, not in the basement, not like this fake social justice, but the genuine contrition, act of contrition. Take the knee and apologize to the American and the world public. And I think most of us will find it in our hearts to say, okay, you're sincere about this. Let's work on the entire redemptive process.
So
and I mean
Alex
that sincere. I don't mean it like TPUSA type redemption, where don't forget to leave your donation at the door. And by the way, not to change the subject, but I think it's being borne out. My argument with you early on this show was that forget the ideology, forget about, Charlie Kirk's turning away from Israel, forget about theology, Christian Zionism, whatever supposedly is responsible for his demise. Early on, I said it is a good old-fashioned gangland hit. That organization, TPUSA, is worth tens of millions of dollars. Him and his wife individually and together were raking in tons of money. He was given the option, plata o plomo. Take the silver, give a little bit, or you get plomo, which is the lead. He said no, and he got plomo. Right? He had the choice. He was given the offer. He refused the offer. Right? So wrap your minds, people, around the idea that life is very simple. Actually, it's the Occam's razor, in effect. What's the simplest explanation? There are competing factions within the mafia family, and Charlie Kirk was on the losing end of it. And then we can start figuring out the other dimensions to it.
Yeah, he was idealistic, and he had his wake-up moment, and he didn't realize if you've got millions of people following you and you are that influential, look what happened to John Lennon, look what happened to Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, JFK. The history repeats itself over and over. There's when you get a critical mass of followings, you either comply or face the consequences. Incarceration is often tried on people. But if it's that there's that much at stake, as with Charlie Kirk, it was
very much so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he was was helping to lead a turning point. That part was for real, because you have the millions of people, especially young people, who were in support of him. But the good news is that even with his death, young people, right, under 30s, I'm talking about the Z generation, the Zoomers, not the Boomers, the Zoomers are stronger than ever about an agenda that was once only of interest to older people. Right. They're kind of following whatever you think about him as a person or his style, Nick Quintus, they are following his lead. And I think that's healthy. That's to be encouraged. And I'd like to see some of the people from that generation walking around on the street, making comments on the Trump administration and some of the people that have fallen by the wayside, or people that should be kicked up. People like Todd Blanche. He's still around. He's still advising Trump. And he was, as we talked about a few weeks ago, he was the guy who was doing the softball interview with Glenn Maxwell at a place of her choosing. And he's also surrounded by this woman, Susie Wiles. It's a perfect name for someone like her, Wiles, Susie Wiles. Yeah, what is he doing? I think that's why he's kind of losing it mentally. Maybe,
you got a question? You got
yeah,
a question,
please.
Professor, from Bandit Car. What evidence do you have that Kirk was given a choice?
I have no evidence. I have no empirical evidence. All I know that he's dead, and I know that he was having some serious doubts on where he was in life and professionally, and he shared those doubts with people close to them, and they've been public with it. So I can only assume that he knew that there was a target on his back.
He said there was. He had a premonition of his own death, and in the exchanges that are documented, that have been released, donors were pulling from him for hosting Tucker Carlson, and they were telling him he needs to toe the line, and there was a lot of pressure. He really was being leaned on by the super mob, elements of the super mob. So there's no actual evidence he was given a choice, but look who benefited the most, and made an example of someone for going against them, which is what the mafia do. They have a reputation to uphold to get the rest of the people in line. They make an example from time to time.
Yeah. Well, there's a character. It's a Yiddish term, and it's a character out of the whole literature of Yiddish literature that the people from super mob that was handed down to them, right? From Tsarist Russia, Ukraine now, right? It's part of their culture. It's the way they look at the world. It's their worldview, their zeitgeist, if you will. But there's a term called the Starker, right? We know what a Schlemiel is, or Schlemazel, or a Putz and all that, but I think the character of the Starker needs to be really looked at semiotically, linguistically, what it means. Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, all the way to Benjamin Netanyahu, and Alan Dershowitz. These guys are prototypical Starkers. These are tough SOBs that will burn your store down if you don't pay up. That's Lower East Side tactics. They'll burn your store down, or they'll burn Pacific Palisades down to the ground. And then they'll blame the Chinese. That's why the Chinese are always portrayed in Hollywood movies as these devious, sneaky, opium-consuming yellow people. Because they can always be during World War II, you can put the Japanese into concentration camp and steal all their real estate. And I'm telling you this now is because I want to avoid this in 2025. That's where it's heading. And by the way, if you think that I'm biased in any one fashion, I've written an entire book on yellow criminals too. In fact, I'm sorry that Stephen Bing is dead, the big, powerful Hollywood movie producer who died of concrete poisoning. after being pushed or fallen out of his 27-story Century City luxury condo. I wanted him to produce my Yellow Godfather trilogy. It would make Francis Ford Coppola look like an exercise in nostalgia, because I'd be talking about the 21st century yellow criminality that people aren't even paying attention to. That's my contribution, ladies and gentlemen. You think it'll sell?
Oh,
Mr.
absolutely.
Attwood?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, all right. Have you ever considered movie executive, movie production as part of your title?
The super mob control that industry, so
I know. But the thing is, I have the main point then, the secret sauce here is that there's another super mob as well. But we're talking about the Central European, Jewish, Ukrainian, Russian mob, right? That's it. I think they're peaking out now because a lot of them have assimilated, and they're lawyers and they're Wall Street people. They don't have that starker mentality, street mentality, like people like Alan Dershowitz. It's kind of faded out, right? But the super mob I'm talking about is the one in China. It'll be produced by Chinese money. How's that? Because it's in their material interest to present the true history of world civilization, and the fact that they were able, the Chinese, during the occupation of their country by Japan, they were the first ones to get rid of the super mob. They got the opium drug lords out of Shanghai, and they stole their shit. That's the true origins of so-called World War II in China.
Which goes back to the biggest drug deal in the world in the 1800s, which was Queen Victoria.
Exactly.
And the royal family's interest in these things. And Mel's asking if we can talk about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, because there was a theory put out by Lady Colin Campbell a week or so ago, and her theory was that the super mob took out Virginia because in Virginia's book, she was about to reference the prime minister who choked her and was aroused, and her neck was injured for days afterwards. And this guy, obviously, researchers believe, is Ehud Barak, prime minister of Israel. But the second part of what Lady C said she'd been told from sources overseas was that the media controlled by the super mob had lined up Prince Andrew to take all of the heat off the prime minister. But now it seems some of that heat is spread to Trump. So what do you think about all the heat being on the prince formerly known as Andrew? And now on Trump? Do you think it's a diversion from Ehud Barak?
Put simply, yes, I agree with Lady C. It is a diversion. I mean, he's not a model citizen or a subject by any stretch of the imagination, but by, at least in America, anything to do with the royals, and it could be, Meghan, right? Even though she's a wannabe, we're there. We'll follow that story carefully, and in exchange, people like Donald Trump can carry on his merry way. So I think he is being put out as sort of a dangle, sort of a distraction. I'm indifferent to his fate. Whatever happens, he's going to land on his feet, and he's not going to be punished in any substantive way. But I'm still concerned about Trump and his decisions as the chief executive. So yeah, the short answer is yes, I agree with that assessment.
All right. You've had tons of questions come in. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go to the questions?
No, except that I'd really like to hear from these authors here. These are two of your countrymen. One of them is Simon Dansuk. And these are people who have been MPs, I mean, they're like insiders. And his co-author is Daniel Smith. It's called Scandal at Dolphin Square. This is the main geographic trysting site where all this intrigue has been going on for the past few decades. Now, it's a historical perspective. And one of these authors wrote about Cyril Smith, a name that I'm sure you're familiar with. So he's
Uh-oh.
talking about this particular time and place. I really be interested, and this is a brand new book. I'd be interested in seeing how they connect what was going on back in the 60s, right? The swinging 60s with 2025. Anyway, that was my editorial comment.
All right, and before the questions end, huge thank you for the super chats. We've got one from Basil and from Donna as well. Thank you, Shaun, for having Professor Hamamoto on. Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And looking at the questions then, Omar is saying, why did DOJ let Epstein off easy from the Tower Financial Ponzi scheme? So Whitney Webb has done a deep dive on all this, and she's got a book, One Nation Under Blackmail, which I would recommend. But yeah, what are your thoughts on? And I was going to interview the Hoffenberg, was it? And then he was unalived, and he was the one who went to prison, and Jeffrey didn't.
Now, who's the OJ? I missed that reference.
The DOJ. Why did Hoffenberg go to prison and Jeffrey didn't for the Tower Financial Ponzi scheme?
That one's easy. Epstein is such a high level. He's untouchable. They can only get rid of him through suicide, quote unquote. The other guy's expendable, and that should be a warning to any of these other characters, such as even Stephen Bing. None of them. You may think you're a hotshot Hollywood producer. You may be Harvey Weinstein, but they can roll you up anytime, whenever it's convenient for them. It's gone. And I think that awareness is a good way to police such behavior or limit such behavior, let's say, because policing doesn't work. Their own sense of self-survival is at play here. And you want to tell these stories about how people jump out of 27-story luxury condos, even though they're worth $600 million, to remind people that, hey, you're really playing with fire here. And that's what happened to that character that got rolled up.
Yeah, Professor's nailed it. Epstein's star was rising with the supermob globalist agenda. And then when he became a liability to them, he was unalived, a la Jean-Luc Brunel. All right, so next question is, will Congress ever investigate Epstein's relationship with various media figures?
They might do it during the election cycle, but nothing of consequence will result. I want to again urge people to not look to or depend upon official channels, government institutional channels, to get at the truth. You can, however, depend on the Shaun Attwood Show to help dig at the truth and reveal it and share it amongst ourselves. We have to break that mindset that, oh, we need an investigation. That's the last thing we need at this point. We need more journalists out there, more eyes on the problem of the situation, and publicize it. And then it'll equalize, it'll level out, I believe, or level up.
Question from Deanne. How do you feel about the possibility of the prince, formerly known as Randy Andy, getting Meghan and Harry together out of his jealousy for King Charles?
Gee, I don't know if that's happening. I think most of it is staged, isn't it? Isn't it theater? All the intrigue. I mean, look at the other royal houses that remain in world. Do you ever hear anything about the imperial family of Japan? No. Yeah, of the Netherlands, of Spain, you know? And I know they're in Spain, it's titular, but it's only in the UK where it's just an obsession. And I think that's intentional. Yeah. Because listen, they're bloodlines, right? You were talking about the Battenbergs, that whole line right there. That bloodline is still very, very strong. And only a part of it is sitting on the throne, you know, Britain.
We've got 2,000 watching live right now. I'm putting Professor's YouTube in the live chat. Please sub. Let's get him above 65K. And according to this fellow, we have gone from a period of religious control, not religious. Yeah, it was religious at one point, but then royal, and religion is still huge. He does get into that as well. But now we are accelerating into the AI digital control grid control. Hence, the royals are no longer as valuable to the supermob globalist agenda. Thus, they're seeing their houses get burned down as well right now.
He could be onto something right there. And if nothing else, they are experts at survival, dynastic survival, because within their history, there have been any number of their predecessors who've literally lost their heads, right? Because the old pitchfork, well, it's not usually the populace. Again, it's the people in their inner circle that depose them, right? Now, the question that I would have for David Icke is that, is there some sort of movement for the restoration of the House of Stuart, the Stuart bloodline, to get away from the Battenbergs, the Germanic line, or Mountbatten, if you prefer? I think might be what's going on, because the princes, their mother Diana was a Stuart, was she not? She was part of the Stuart bloodline. And I think the bloodline story needs to be followed. It's still very much with us, even in the age of genetics and post-genetics, genomics and all. Bloodlines is determinate here. I think that there's sort of a struggle here of survival, self-survival.
I'd like to announce as well that we have got, and this is going to be on the evening of November the 22nd, so it's next Saturday actually at 8 p.m. We've got Doc Brown coming on to talk about the history of elite, royal, and Illuminati bloodlines.
Oh,
yes, indeed, Diana was brought in from an elite bloodline to boost the incestuous inbred DNA of the royal family. That's what I believe.
And I think she was quoted herself as saying, "I'm nothing but a broodmare."
Yeah,
this is what Diana said. Yeah.
And the rest of us are the great unwashed masses, the cattle.
Right.
That have no.
We're the stable boys.
Yeah. So yeah, if you've got questions for Professor H, please get them in the chat right now. I'm working my way through them, and we're up to 2,100 watching. So
excellent.
Let's see, JR. Do you think Charlie Kirk was aware of the illicit actions involving Tyler, i.e. bullying minors who were victims of SA by TP staff and the money laundering?
I think he might have known some of the general information there. I think Charlie Kirk was calling for or had executed an audit, a complete institutional audit of TPUSA. That's what I heard. I'm not sure about that. And he found some huge discrepancies in the balance sheet there. Now, what's interesting to me is that there have been recent lines of inquiry implicating Cavalry Church and certain Protestant offshoot denominations in America who were benefiting from TPUSA, Turning Point USA. So that thread needs to be pulled on. I think that might yield a lot of results, because I do remember back in the 1980s when George W. Bush and his people brought in these so-called faith-based initiatives, and they used Christian conservatism as a basis for expanding and consolidating Republican/Israel power, military, economic, and they used the churches. I'm seeing a repeat of that in the earlier part of the 21st century. So we need to revisit the Reagan-Bush period when they started bringing these churches into doing these qualitative gestures in order to legitimize state power, military power. Faith-based initiatives. That's the key word.
Yeah, again, it's control of the masses through religion. Look at the
Right.
reach of some of these pastors, these super churches. They've
Right.
all been co-opted by the super mob. And Kevin Annette is coming on November the 29th to talk about this, and a priest that was whacked
Oh no.
by the Vatican. He's going to have a special guest on related to that priest. So that's going to be an interesting one.
Yes.
Your next question is from Nikki, Professor. Stormy Daniels tried to take Trump down but didn't succeed. Will the JE files do it?
No, again, let's not depend on any sort of official revelations change our trajectory here. Stormy Daniels has now become a punchline, and I know that because recently, I think it's just last week, they've been releasing photos, pictures of Stormy Daniels now. Not when she was in her prime as a adult actress, but recently. And she's a laughingstock. So that's yesterday's news. And again, it's thrown out in order to take us away from the true story. And that is, did Donald Trump take billions of dollars from all these dead billionaires who jump out of multi-story luxury condos? Is there a Trump death list? We know about the Clinton death list. Is there a Trump death list? There's some signs that there might be.
Do you believe that the files are intact, or have they been compromised over time?
Well, I'm sure they've been compromised, but again, at this point they've receded into irrelevance, right? I say, look at Leo S. Bing, look at Stephen Bing. There's no material on them. I mean, I only looked at it for about an hour, but there are no academic articles about Leo S. Bing. He's like one of the people, that Bing and Bing Company, they're one of the people or families that are responsible for the famous skyline of New York City, but there's nothing on him. That's power. That's like bigger than Sidney Korshak. Korshak probably did business for him. That's where we need to pay the attention. Let's drop the files. We're not interested. Let's forget about Cash Money Patel and his skanky girlfriend, right? Or Pam Bondi, or all these characters. They are there as window dressing at best. And what did David Icke refer to this? The manipulated independent media? What was his phrase?
Oh, yeah. What was it? I'll look it up in a minute.
Okay,
let me
because
ask
I
you
want
this
to use
question.
it.
I'll find it. I'll find it in a minute.
I'm going to use it as a shorthand.
What do you think of the City of London? Is it all controlled from there, or most of it?
Well, that's where a lot of the clubs, the lunches are held. But in my study, again, this is an innovation of Professor Hamamoto here. The British economy was offshored beginning when Ian Fleming went to Jamaica with a bunch of other expats and started up setting banking, international, global, as well as British banking in the Caribbean. That's the whole idea of Golden Eye. That was the name of the state, Golden Eye. Dr. No. That's why those movies were set, and the books were set in all these exotic locations. They mean MI6, were telling us, hey, this is the new location of Britannia. It's not the tourist sites. It's not Buckingham Palace or Trafalgar Square. It's in Kingston, right? With was it Blackwell? Chris Blackwell. He was a descendant of colonials, right? When Bermuda, Jamaica were all part of the empire there, and they went independent. And they said, okay, we'll give you your sovereignty, but we're going to use you as a banking shell. And that's where, by the way, all the American youth capital, whatever they are, if you can call them Americans, they don't have a nationality. That's where their holdings are situated. They're offshore. There was a book called The Panama Papers that laid the whole hidden international banking system there. So again, we have to break with the traditional stories about the City of London and the Queen must ask permission of the Lord Mayor in order to enter the gates. And we've heard these stories, but at the same, while we're being entertained by them, the world government system, economic system, has been offshored to Panama, the Panama Papers, the Bermuda. And Ian Fleming, who is, I believe, a descendant of the Scottish Templar bankers, Fleming, and indeed his own father was a banker. And Bond himself, the character, is a Templar knight, I believe. Like Simon Templar, there's another book called The Saint, right? That's where they move their money in the new world. That's where it is now. That's where forensic accountants need to put their attention into.
So David Icke has been talking a lot of late about what he has dubbed the mainstream alternative media, with most of his concern directed towards the lionization of Elon Musk within alternative circles. And he's not very happy with Alex Jones either.
There you go. Okay, it's ma'am. There you go, ma'am. Slam bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, he just calls him the ma'am throughout his audiobook.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to use that with his permission. We're going to put it into the language.
20 hours long, the audiobook. I listened to it on the way to Glasgow and back, the audiobook. 20 hours long.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question
is about this guy.
Ooh. Now that is a stalker. Yeah, you mess with me, I'm going to beat you up. You're on the death list. We're going to have to fill out the. This is Mark Levin. These are like a New York or Philadelphia Jewish mobsters, right out of. You've watched the 1930s movies with George Raft, made by Jewish mafia guys from Central Europe. These guys are like super mob. Louis B. Mayer. They lionize their own culture. They were talking. That's Dershowitz.
Question.
That's Alan Dershowitz. Huh?
Dershowitz claimed he has some of the files. Do you believe him, or is he just trying to foolishly insert himself into all of this?
Well, if you think about Dershowitz is not as a legal scholar, right? Although he has an endowed chair, which, by the way, is funded by Supermob. They create academic chairs for people like Dershowitz in literature, in law, in the sciences. And I think that the CHICOM should create an endowed chair and put me in it. All right, that's how we solve the Supermob problem. But he is primarily not a lawyer, not a legal scholar. He is a fame whore. So he cannot help but keep inserting himself into these stories because he wants to remain relevant. He's a publicist. In the New York Times or the LA Times or the journals of opinion, right? There's all of these obituaries and they just glaze the dead, and those are all paid for. Because even in death, the super mob likes to be remembered. Oh, he was a great philanthropist. He was good to his family. He donated to his temple, right? In the meantime, man, they're stealing Japanese American real estate and converting it into a hotel empire called the Hyatt. And they created an architectural prize named after their own crooked family, the Pritzker Prize. So anyway, I'm trying to relate it to my own personal history. This is personal. I'm sorry, I'm going off.
No. So Dershowitz was indeed on Piers Morgan last week.
Who?
And Dershowitz was on Piers Morgan last week. And he was saying that the feds had no control over the Epstein files. It wasn't the Trump administration. He was saying it was two judges, which he named. But then the panelists shut him down quickly and said, look, those two judges are only overseeing 3% of the Epstein files. You don't know what you're talking about. So he was squirming around a little bit on Pierce, trying to spin his own agenda. Yeah.
He just will not leave the historical stage. He's a ham. Dershowitz. He's an exhibitionist. And he
Yes.
keeps getting caught in his own lies and ignorance, really. He should, just like a gentleman, retire quietly to West Palm Beach, whatever it is, and just stay off the Piers Morgan show.
He's an exhibitionist who keeps getting caught with his underpants on, according to him.
Yes. His tidy whiteys.
Jane, yeah, I was on InfoWars a few days ago. It was with Brianna. If you go on Real Alex Jones feed on X, scroll down to Brianna's episode. It's multi-hours long. If you have to zip through it and see my face pop up, that's the best way to possibly find it. All right. So, did the Freemasons start with the Knights Templar?
I don't know if they started with them, but there's certainly a lot of different cross-hatching and intermarriage, I guess, if you can call it that. But at bottom, these are all economic, financial institution arrangements. That's why even the so-called Porch Masons, of which my father was one, by the way, he was a Freemason at a very low level, but he joined for the business hookups. That was, that's really, you meet people and you can do real estate deals or whatever it is that you're selling, right? And but at the highest level, of course, that's where the Luciferian agenda comes to the fore. But the majority of them are what they call Porch Masons, or they're at the external end of it. Just like in academia, there's certain levels of it. The rookies are there, or the ones that rise to a certain level, they don't know what's really at the top of the pyramid. They're kept from that. Now, Dershowitz, he was admitted to the highest temple. People like that.
So, was it King Charles's mentor, Lord Mountbatten, who brought Jimmy Savile into the British royal family? So I've written a book called Untouchable Jimmy Savile, where I do go down that path. Indeed, he was brought into the fold by Mountbatten.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that one, Professor?
Yeah, the Lowney book really fleshes it out. Mountbatten, as it turns out, was a boy fancier himself. He liked to go out into the wild with the Boy Scouts and fiddle about, as they say. So it's very much consistent with their elite culture. And there's sort of psychosexual explanations that are advanced for why it seems to be endemic to this class of people, right? Royalty. And part of it is because the history of long distance conquest and travel, staying in India, wherever it took sometimes years and years of just male company, right? All male societies as you were colonizing the world. So these very strong homosocial bonds were formed over generations. That we're still seeing that today, especially between older men and younger boys.
Yeah, we did a podcast with Andrew Loney years ago. We just republished it about the Mountbatten book. And the American intelligence had files on Mountbatten because it was in the interest of national security to keep an eye on him. And they said that, his relationship, they were like swingers. He had a beard, wife, and he was into soldier boys, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all been documented now, thanks to people like Andrew Loney. And the other freaky couple was the Duke of Windsor and Wallace Simpson. They were always in Hollywood and kinds of. This was like bigger and more extensive and kinkier than P Diddy, Shaun John Com. This was like in golden age Hollywood. You can imagine, and there was no internet, right? There was no cover. It was complete blackout. They had complete license to do whatever they wanted. This is in the 30s and the 40s. The war kind of slowed it down, but this has never stopped, and it probably will never stop, ladies and gentlemen.
So next question is, what do you think about the timing of David Icke's return to YouTube? That is an interesting question, actually, because I was terminated at the same time as David Icke. And one of the proponents for his elimination and mine was an organization out of London called the Centre for Countering Digital Hate. So they put together this multi-page report as to why Ike should be terminated. But they also had a list of Ike amplifiers. Like a top 10. I was number 2. And Brian Rose of London Real, who was also terminated back then, was number 1. Fortunately, thanks to you, the viewers, lobbying YouTube, I got my channel back quite quickly. Brian Rose has come back recently, and David Icke has come back recently. I believe AJ came back, Alex Jones briefly, but they terminated him again.
Again? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Well, there you go. And again, this goes back to my earlier point. It's a public pressure and scrutiny and agitation, as glacially slow as it may happen. They do have an impact sometimes, not always. It's not guaranteed. And this is an example of that. YouTube, I think the political pressure mounted to the point where they had to loosen up again. Now it can contract, right, overnight practically. And we should always be mindful of creating alternative platforms and creating new ways of communicating. That's our ace in the hole, is that we are ever resourceful in, because I'm sure you found workaways around you being deplatformed from YouTube. I think the main one is that you kept publishing. You were producing books, so your name and your work was always out there. And I think you were, if I'm not mistaken, publishing it independently, so you didn't run the risk of having your book, like Supermob, being pulped. This book is no longer available, ladies and gentlemen, because it's too close to the truth. They pulped this book. If you can find it used, it's going to cost you at least $100. All right, and that does happen, because guess what? Who owns the publishing companies, media in general? Supermob. and if it's another mob, like let's say the CCP, who runs TikTok, the super mob in America is powerful enough to take it from the Chinaman and hand it to guess who? Mr. Oracle himself. Him and his son run TikTok now. Right, that's another super mob example. What's that?
Yeah, the super mob snatched TikTok, didn't they? So staying on YouTube requires studying the community guidelines, of which there are many pages, and they vary month to month and get periodic updates. So studying the community guidelines is the key, and then keeping your language within the confines of the guidelines, but getting the mission out there still, but not crossing that line. And some people criticize us because we weigh our words carefully, and they say that's disrespectful to survivors, etc. But our mission is to get the biggest reach possible for the survivors, and by doing so, we've got to cross this minefield. Now, you've had a few people, Professor, ask you for your thoughts on Diddy's predicament. What's going to happen next with Diddy?
Well, I believe that he only has about a year's worth of sentence to serve, right? And there's certain activity that he can volunteer for in prison that'll reduce his time even more so. So he doesn't have much time because he's already been serving prison time. They counted against his sentence. So he'll be out before we know it.
All right, I've just Googled it, and it's saying it's been pushed back to June the 4th, 2028. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
My prediction, he'll be out sometime in 26. He's not going to serve his full term.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Do you think
he's going to? Are suggestions, they're guidelines. I mean, they're supposed to be fixed, but in this world, everything is negotiable. Even your death.
Do you still think he's going to retire quietly, or do you think he's going to parlay his incarceration into new music?
No, he's a joke. Even if he had not gone through prison, there is a certain progression in careers. He's already aged out. He's too old to be. He's aged out of being cool. There's a new guy out there. His name's David, right? And so happens they found his 14-year-old girlfriend found in his Tesla in the trunk. He's still walking around free. He hasn't been brought in for questioning. It's a guy named David, by the way, and I believe he's a protege of the one and only Clive Davis. I might be wrong about that. So it's those people who we should be looking at right now. The people who are on the come up. Diddy is old news. Let's move on.
Do you think any billionaires in Hollywood will fall?
Yeah, I think the next one will be David Geffen. Why? Because he's got a huge fortune and there are people in his circle who want it. Just like there were people in Charlie Kirk's circle who wanted what he had. David Geffen, he has a label named after himself, Geffen Records, Asylum. He's the guy responsible for bringing Laura Nero to the fore. She's an excellent singer-songwriter. The Eagles, or not the Eagles, Eagles. There he is, David Geffen, when he was a young hustler. And now you know what David Geffen is doing? He's hustling young black men. And it's his husband, who is a black man, who is suing him for support. Now, how does he get the money, his husband, quote unquote, get the money to sue someone like David Geffen, who owns the world? Well, there's some people in the super mob who have been watching David Geffen since the day he showed up at Creative Artists. He started out as a talent agent and have been seeing his rise, and they've been using him to build up his companies. Now he's got a bunch of it. And what's he doing? That's the guy on the right, Donovan something. They're kind of embarrassed because he's an old man. He's gay. He's one of the beneficiaries of the California gay divorce law, so he can marry this gold digger. So the super mob are embarrassed because he's taken up with a guy who's 60 years younger than him, and he's a Schwarzer. That's Yiddish for Negro or black. It's a disparaging term in Yiddish. Schwarzer. He's an embarrassment. They don't want they want Minch. The super mob wants Minch like Harvey Weinstein, not David Geffen.
Have you read The Operator, the book about David Geffen?
I think I did a long time. Was that nonfiction or fiction?
I don't know. It's a question that's come in. It says it's worth 9 billion. So he's 9 billion. Yeah. He's getting liquidated, is it?
Yes. Well, this guy here wants half. Yeah. He was he's a male model. He looks good in underwear and all that. And he claims that David Geffen belittled him, made fun of him because he didn't know how to choose wines correctly and hold his fork and his spoon, Yeah, they go sailing on his yacht, Geffen's yacht. He wants half. This is California, right? State of California. And guess what? Shaun, you're a businessman. Your friend David Geffen did not sign a prenuptial agreement. Yeah. He's not that smart after all, is he? He's worth billions. He didn't sign a prenup, huh?
9 billion. Psst, gone.
$9 billion. Not dollars. And the person who pioneered these palimony, they're called divorces, was a California lawyer. His name's Marvin Mitchelson. That is a name that should go down in history as being one of these legal minds that figured out how to game the system for his client. That's Marvin Mitchelson. Think of all the women in Beverly Hills, Hollywood, Malibu who became instant rich by dumping their old husband. And they got half of it. And then they find these young lovers like this guy here, Donovan, whatever his name is. They're the ones driving around on Rodeo Boulevard. And their old man, jumped off of a 27-story luxury condo. So, it's like karma.
So
It's the law of the
JM
universe. Hmm?
JM is asking if you think the super mob is behind the instigation of the next World War.
Yes. Very simply, yes. Because they're nuclear powered. We know about Dimona.
Is
And
it
all
gonna
the
erupt out of the Middle East, or is it gonna erupt out of Ukraine?
I think it's going to erupt in the United States. Right. There was a semi-warning in Japan. It's called Fukushima. That was an Israeli limited nuclear warning out there. Sacrifice that area, which I've been there, by the way, out that area, northern Japan. So I think it's something similar is going to be staged in the U.S. within U.S. borders. I mean, why would they want to contaminate the Holy Land, which I've never been to, and I wish that whole the hostilities would cease so I could go there and visit as a tourist. I would like to go to Syria. I would like to go to all these areas that are now off limits because of all the hostilities. I want to see where it all began.
Will Harvey Weinstein's conviction be overturned?
Yes. He's halfway out already. Because listen, it's all about the clock, the time clock, and the historical memory. And optics, because every time you see him, he's hobbling around on a walk. He looks like an old infirm man, and we feel sorry for him, right? And plus, we have any number of examples of even more heinous activity being committed that make his crimes pale. Not to minimize them, but they make them seem insignificant. Because we're talking about, let's say, crimes involving underage people. I won't go any further than that. And that should be our focus. Forget about Harvey Weinstein for now, and let's go for the unresolved pledge of President Trump to stem this practice. He started with the immigration stem, but now what about the children?
Thoughts on Trump reinstating U.S. nuclear program?
Oh my gosh, I don't think it was ever. It might have been put on pause. I don't think it was ever done away with. It's still very much there's these working laboratories now. It seems to be devoted to CERN type of technologies, but maybe they're working in concert. Remember, Trump is first and foremost, he's a builder and he's a military man. His father became a multimillionaire through government contracts, building massive housing in Brooklyn and maybe New York City as well. So he's always looking out for government largesse handouts, and now he's in the position of handing out the goodies here. And the nuclear industry is going to be one of them.
So you've got several people asking for your thoughts on this decision Trump has made about Venezuela, the country with the biggest oil reserves in the world, but we're going to go in and stop them sending drugs to America. That's the pretext.
Bad idea, and the public should start mobilizing an anti-war effort in advance before the landings begin. But, and along those lines, I would not be surprised if there was some sort of assassinations going on in Venezuela. Sad to say, because it's happening in Mexico right now. There was a mayor who was decapitated recently under the presidency of Sheinbaum, right? Who's probably a super mob, by the way. She might be a Mexican national, but she's Sheinbaum. Her family come from Sabbatean land originally. But so did the Frida Kahlo, their family, huh?
Look at the globalist stranglehold on the leaders of Europe. We've got Macron, who's a former Rothschilds banker.
Mm-hmm.
The leader of Italy, banker. We've got Keir Starmer, lawyer. Anyway, Omar wants to know whether junk bond kingpin Michael Milken is part of the super mob.
Yes, he is. Absolutely. And he's part of the super mob methodology is to launder your reputation, to steal all the money you can from Japanese people or Mexicans. Dodger Stadium was built on stolen Mexican American property, by the way. Dodger Stadium, they just won the World Series, but they got rid of all the Mexican population. Their super mob took it over, and they handed it over to an Irish mafia chieftain called Walter O'Malley, and they built a multi-million-dollar enterprise, and they could hire Japanese talent like Otani Shohei for $700 million. That's super mob, right? So yeah, it's still happening in everything. And now, by the way, as a tip off, it's not a tip off, it's just looking forward, into the future. Online gambling. That's the new super mob playground. Las Vegas has been dismantled slowly. Now it's going online. What's that?
Big money. Big money.
Yeah.
Jane wants to know, do the Knights Templar go back to the early Crusades?
Well, that's supposedly their origins. Yeah, that was their reason for being, is to go there to protect the pilgrims. That's part of the cover story, I guess. But they're all about usury and banking. It hasn't changed since that time.
All right. Next question is about your attire. Let me find it. Someone was saying how resplendent you look in your present
thank you.
outfit, and is there a story behind it?
Well, this is real Japanese wear. It's indigo tie. I think indigo, the blue, regular, organic fabric, it has a certain energy. I believe the colors, according to a friend of mine who knows this. In fact, she was the one who bought it for me. It's getting cooler, so this is, you can't see, but it's slightly padded. But it is MIJ. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good, and your camera's really clear now.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Have you tweaked your service?
No, I think the service provider decided to unthrottle me.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened to Chinese actor Yu Menglong RS?
I heard the story. He was enslaved. He was catfished. He was enticed and taken down to Cambodia. There are all these call centers, if you want to call them, right across the border of China to Cambodia. They set up there, and these are multi-million-dollar catfishing operations. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be caught up in a catfish situation, because the beautiful Chinese woman that you think you are courting, that is a stolen pic from somewhere else, and it's actually an enslaved Chinese actor named Yu Ming who's writing the little love letters to have you send money to him or her or it, whatever it is. It's called catfishing. No, it's called pig slaughtering. Translated in English, it's called pig slaughtering. You fatten the pig and then you slaughter it. There's lots of information on that on TubeView.
Any thoughts on COP30, specifically the rainforest they destroyed to build the enormous highway just for the 11-day convention?
I have no knowledge of that, where that is. That's pretty horrible. For an 11-day convention, what kind of convention? About anti-deforestation? That's like something like maybe the Sierra Club would be behind, the so-called environmental organizations, which are actually about the degradation of the environment. We know that by now, right? But I have no specific knowledge of that.
So DG is asking about the NASA shutdown of A1 Atlas footage, I believe. I've been following this story, and we had Dr. Sala on, and there's a theory that as this comet gets closer to the Earth, which is in I think it's December the 19th, it comes the closest, that more truth is going to be revealed because it's changing our energy.
Is that the celestial body called Uma or something like that? I can't remember.
No, this is the one that's traveling at
Uh-huh.
really crazy speed that was only discovered this summer,
Mhm.
and it's just gone past the sun. It's going to go near the Earth, and it's heading off to Jupiter after that. And there's been all kinds of conspiracy theories about whether it's actually a comet or whether it's some kind of alien technology.
Yeah, I would suspect it is a technology, but it's not alien. It probably comes from planet Earth. Could be a hologram. I don't know. I don't. I'm very suspicious of these talks of signs and wonders. Right at this particular moment, signs and wonders. And I've read this individual's work. He's done a lot of work on what we're called UFOs and all that. I'm skeptical of him. So I'm not sure about that whole theory there.
This one's quite unique in the fact that it's up to 3.5 miles wide. It's the fastest object ever recorded visiting our solar system, going at 250,000 kilometers an hour, or 155,000 miles per hour. And they're estimating that it's at least 13 billion years old, and it's come from another galaxy. So it's really strange.
Well, isn't there a Steven Spielberg movie that's going to be coming out in a few months, like in early 2026, about this? Yeah, Spielberg. He's the guy that's always announcing visitations from outer space, isn't he? Steven Spielberg. He's one of the favorite directors for Supermob.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. So
exactly, it all comes down to Supermob.
This crazy headline where Elon Musk said he's contracting to be paid $1 trillion seems just like PR BS to me. To be contracted to be paid $1 trillion, there's not that much money to pay him. It's not worth that much.
As a consult, what are they going to pay him for? I'm behind the news cycle. As a consultant, Doge.
No, this is from his companies. His companies are not worth that much, but the contract states that if he creates X amount of value in the future, he will be the first to be paid $1 trillion by his own companies.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect it's a pump and dump scheme anyway. I can say that because no one's going to listen to me, and the stock prices are going to stay high. But it sounds like another super mob pump and dump scheme. Right, you saw The Big Short, right? You read the book, The Big Short.
Yeah, now he's shot in AI, and AI is what Elon Musk is riding that bubble.
Yeah, I mean, they back in The Big Short, they shorted the U.S. housing market, right? They shorted the U.S. economy. Well, the Rothschilds shorted the British and the English economy. So it's the same formula, but now they're taking it celestial or virtual or VR or solar, whatever it is. These are all part of the pump and dump formula.
Yeah, when George Soros shorted the British pound, he built up a short position worth 10 billion on Black Wednesday, and he made £1 billion profit, which is $1.3 billion, by betting against the British pound and the Bank of England. Which went down in history at the time. This was back in was it 1997? Was it? No, 1992. 1992. I remember that was huge news in the financial markets at the time. Yeah, but he's just an instrument of the Rothschilds. He's like a middle manager for them, isn't he?
Well, the Rothschilds are historically they were the original short sellers, right? The Battle of Waterloo, the Napoleon story.
Yeah, buy when blood is running in the streets.
Yeah, there you go. So I think there's these people like Elon Musk who they know the history, and they're trying to duplicate the formula, but using a different biscuit, a different piece of bait in order to lure us in.
They crash a financial market, folks, intentionally, so that they can buy your assets and raid your pensions for 10 cents on the dollar. And then it all gets boosted back up again, and they know when it's going down. So they're short and they're ready to buy it all back when when the blood is running in the streets. That's what Rothschild banker originally bragged about when they were fomenting wars. They had families in each country, army in each side, so they knew the outcomes and before anybody else. So they would take positions in the stock market, pretend the opposite person had won to try and crash one country's stock market, when really that country or whatever had won, and it would all reverse, and the short would be cashed out, and they've capitalized on the upswing. So total market manipulation strategy going back hundreds of years.
So imagine if we see a celestial body coming through our solar system and threatening to destroy human life. Wow, that'll get a lot of people to short sell. That's how I view all these. Huh?
They'll be hiding out in their bunkers on Mars and shorting planet Earth. So you've had a few people ask you your thoughts on Bill Gates.
Shorting planet Earth. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Well, the depopulation agenda is shorting the great unwashed masses, which is what they consider us to be. All right, here we go.
True.
Many people asking about Bill Gates.
Bill Gates Jr., he's been laying low because he knows that the people out there with the torches and pitchfork are watching him very carefully. See, as I was saying earlier, the general public who doesn't even follow this stuff, they know all this. So what we need to look at is who is being swapped out for Bill Gates Jr., who's the new emerging wunderkind that they're going to be writing for the next generation. It's going to come out of the Generation Z. Let's look at him or her. Or it could be it could be an AI simulacrum, a construct, a quantum construct. So let's stop pursuing. Well, let's not stop, but let's shift our attention from yesterday people to the tomorrow people. Bill Gates Jr. is a yesterday person. I mean, I hope he gets all the justice that he deserves, but history doesn't stop. We have to anticipate instead of react.
All right, let me see. Are you aware of Abraham Traor's recent speech? I'm not.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. All right, next question then. We are getting towards the end now. Any info on real benevolent secret society? On a real benevolent? Are there any secret societies that are really benevolent?
Not that I know of.
They're all co-opted.
Yeah. It's there's a political theorist, Jean Michels. He called it the iron law of oligarchy. Right? Maybe originally the Knights Templar were really heroic people, but as they take on oligarchic form, inevitably the iron law kicks in and they become corrupted and they become the oppressor.
Do you think Prince William is selling out the royal family and the UK to get a seat at the very long table of the system?
Well, he is the system, and I think mostly it's a Punch and Judy show. It's a puppet show. If there's anything substantive behind it, I think there's some slight maneuvering of the ascendancy of the Stuart, or the reemergence of the Stuart bloodline.
What are your thoughts on Palantir and Peter Thiel? And there's the latest in the Palantir stock price. It has wobbled a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but it's still way up from. It's up hundreds of percent, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a bad piece of work, and he really shows his limitations, his intellectual limitations when he does these interviews, because he's glitching out most of the time. Am I right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you're the head of a multi-million-dollar company? You're glitching.
He's
Come
like he is
on.
an AI. He's like he is a creation of his own AI.
I think so. They talk about AI hallucinations, right? You put a question and starts hallucinating. We don't even have to go that far. He's hallucinating. I think he's microdosing on his own hallucinogens down in Silicon Valley. I make fun of him. He's a powerful and dangerous person. And one way we can put him down to human proportions is to make fun of him and mock him.
Professor, you've been on for nearly 2 hours. Absolute gentleman as usual.
That's a pleasure.
We do appreciate you. Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion to the viewers, and what can they look forward to on your channel in the coming weeks?
Well, tomorrow I'll be having on the great author Leo Zagami on the origins and the end, right? The fall of the Frankus monster. He's predicting a fall because we know the historical trajectory now. So that's for tomorrow. And I would just like to conclude for your above average audience, do not short sell humanity.
Thank you, my friend. We look forward to that interview. It's going to be a huge rabbit hole to go down. It's so well researched. So we look forward to that. I'm going to close the show and let you go. You have a great rest of your weekend. Cheers, Professor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Right. We've got tons of content coming on tomorrow, folks. A lot of Freemason stuff. I'm going to be on with Ryan Dawson from 1 o'clock, I think, till about 2:30. Then we've got a 2.5-hour podcast about Freemason, police, possibly unaliving the Essex boys. Then we've got an hour or so live stream with that guest on the Freemasons. And then I do believe Ron has got ex-cop Gary coming on at 6. So that's 5 hours, 6, 7, possibly 8 hours of content tomorrow, starting at 1 o'clock. So hope to see some of you in the chat. So that's 1 o'clock UK. Take care around the world.